Hiya, I'm Perry from Rennet Rind. So I've been doing these cheese boards for the last 9 weeks, maybe longer than that, and doing them for people to enjoy their self in lockdown. And we've been Cheese Plus for a very long time. We still are Cheese Plus, but with the success of our retail arm in lockdown and everyone wanting to try our cheese at home, we thought that it'd be prudent to, which we had an idea for a while, to create a brand which was just focusing on you guys at home. So Rennet and Rind is what's going to be coming at you, and essentially where you can buy all your cheese. So you can go to www.rennetandrind.com and you can buy all your cheese there. Look us up on social media, give us a call, drop an email if you're getting confused where we are. But it's just an opportunity to kind of really focus on the retail arm. As I've been explaining for months, we've got loads of cheese that we mature at Rennet and Rind, and essentially we wanted to get it into people's homes because it had nowhere to go because all the restaurants are shut. So we've been doing these mystery boxes for the last 9 weeks, and we launched a new website which allows click and collect. It allows just a lot more functionality, and it makes our life easier in terms of processing the orders in the future, which is all very boring stuff, but the cheese is still phenomenal. So I'm coming to you with 5 more cheeses for your mystery cheese box, and I thought we'd take a slightly different approach this week, and we'd take 2 cheeses from 2 different farms, but they're different styles. So the first cheese that we have up is one that's been in our box, I think on week 2, which was a Sussex brie. And the Sussex brie that we had was a lot more aged, so it had those real kind of deep flavour notes, which this one doesn't quite have, but that's not a bad thing. It's a brie style. It's made by Alsop. It's pasteurised, vegetarian rennet, and a really easygoing brie. We've got some big flavours on here which are pretty ticking high on those kind of big elements. So we wanted to start off with something mild, ease you in, and just so you can kind of understand what's going on. All these are in your tasting notes. I've got to mention those, which you receive every week, which is your detailed tasting notes on how things are tasting in my maturing rooms, so you get to know what's going on in there and everything. So so let's try some Sussex Camembert. So really neutral, low flavour aroma, like not too intense, milky, dairy. Flavour is so pleasant, really easy. Like if you've got anyone in your house who's not a massive kind of cheese fan, they'll gravitate towards this one because it's just really mellow and has some really nice flavours in it. That mushroomy element is there, but it's kind of like really rich milk, which is just fantastic to have. I mean, that's a good cheese to start with. I'm really looking forward to this board actually. As I was unwrapping it, I was kind of tempted to start eating some, but I staved off just for the video, but I will devour it afterwards. So yeah, that's Alsop Walker. Next cheese we have is one of my favourites, which is Sparkenhoe Red Leicester. So this cheese we age for 18 months. So traditionally Red Leicester is kind of a youngish cheese. It's normally between 8 and 12 months where it's aged. And a lot of people ask me always, how do they get that colouring? And it's from a bush in South America where you use the seeds, and it's called annatto. And you literally drop that in the milk. It doesn't affect the flavour at all, but gives you this really beautiful kind of like russet red kind of colour going through it. Now there's a French cheese which is called Mimulette, really famous one, and that's kind of got the same annatto orange inner interior, but it's got a real gnarly rind, and I don't know if you can see that there, but the rind essentially is covered in mites. Now don't worry, they're fine. Cheese is alive. It's a moving thing. There's loads of good bacteria, bad bacteria, and loads of wars going back and forth kind of with letting the good bacteria win, and that's what we're doing. And it creates this really rustic, gnarly kind of rind and just imparts a little bit of flavour on there. We dust that all off you, but if you get a little dust you can kind of see the elements of it, and it really firms up the rind so it's nice and hard. It keeps in that moisture and then creates this really unique flavour. So this is made by David and Joe in Nuneaton, Warwickshire. It's the only Red Leicester to be made in Leicester. So everything else that you're eating from, I'm looking at you supermarkets, you're just getting some kind of cheddar which has just been dyed essentially. So this is wrapped in a cloth, and the flavour is, you know, really nutty, a little bit of dairy, huge amounts of kind of like savoury notes that are coming in there, but not as impactful as it usually is, which is good. Really well sorted. Signature tang that you get from cheddars and red Leicesters. Washes of savouriness. That tang is like carrying on all the way through. Nice little citrusy kind of acidity that's in there. Good salt balance. Beautiful after lovely texture. Like breaks down really easy, but not well enough that it kind of dissipates. It's kind of got those little nuggets of cheddariness. But yeah, David and Joe have been making this for quite some time. They're responsible for the revival of artisan Red Leicester style cheeses. I think there's a lot more that are being made around the country now, but this is the first. Tons of longevity. I mean, that flavour just keeps on coming. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. Really enjoy it. So the next cheese that we have up is from my friend Peter Humphreys and Roger down in Somerset, White Lake Cheeses. They make some terrific goat's cheeses. And this one is called Rachael. He names all his cheeses after girls, and a lot of people say they're ex-girlfriends, and he decides to make cheese like them. Well, this one has really interesting mould on that note. I don't know what you take from that, but this mould is really interesting. This is called Chrysosporium, which is this yellow stuff that's kind of on it. The French call it the little yellow flower, and this is like the epitome of affinage. If you can get this cave mould, which like you can only find in certain caves in France, into your man-made maturation rooms down in Somerset, it's like you're pretty good at what you do. So they wash the rind of this cheese. It's a wash rind goat's cheese, and I think a lot of people in the UK are have terrible experiences with goat's cheese, like those grilled cheese salads. I remember them like that, and they're like baked, and you eat them, and they taste of like a goat's fur, and that's because it's mass-corporated kind of cheese. And there's been some science which is about if you stir your milk slowly, then you will get less of that goaty flavour up front. So, and that's the one thing that people don't like about goat's cheese. And whenever everyone says to me, "Oh, I don't like goat's cheese," I'm just like, maybe try just some British goat's cheese. Like, give that a go, and it may change your mind. So let me cut into this. I mean, as I said last week, there is an etiquette with cutting, but please don't worry about that. Cheese is to be enjoyed. Get involved, devour it. Really milky, really fresh, actually, really fresh, like grassy, which you would expect from goat's cheese. I always find that note that's in there. Beautiful colour, actually, good texture. It's kind of like pliant, but not like rubbery, not like Baby Bell, but like just a good texture. Flavour is beautiful. I love that. It's like got this sourness to it, which is kind of like a sour cream just at the start, which my girlfriend will love because she devours any kind of sour cream. Really nutty kind of finish, really clean, like good palate cleanser, like in there, pretty good. I need to move on to the other cheeses, but I really like this one. Delicious. So yeah, that's made by Peter Humphreys down at White Lake Cheeses. Terrific cheesemaker, won plenty of awards, really good friend of ours, loves a drink, and that's always good with cheesemakers as far as I'm concerned. Next cheese we're going to move to is another cheese from David and Joe, who make the Sparkenhoe Red Leicester. And cheese that we have here, I haven't got enough knife, let me just wipe that off, is a blue, and it's a Shropshire blue, in vein of their famous annatto cheeses. Same milk, I think they use Holstein Friesians, I think they have about 170 around that mark. And I love this cheese because it's got undles and undles of savouriness. So usually the profile that we go for is that the proteins are beginning to break down in there. You've got some more of that creaminess, and hopefully if I cut into it, it should be a clean kind of easy cut, not too crumbly, but a little bit of crumbly. We've got this blue, which I think I always talk about. In blues, I look for this ivory black kind of blue. I don't know why, I just prefer the flavour profiles that it imparts. So yeah, once again, milk is coloured by this annatto. Someone asked me last week about, you know, what makes a blue, what makes a Red Leicester a Red Leicester. I can't remember who it was, so sorry, but the answer is cultures. So when you make cheese, you get your milk and you pop in a starter culture, and that kicks off all the bacteria to begin breaking down the milk to basically turn it into the cheese that you're going to make. So this one we use like a Penicillium Roquefort, they call it. Roquefort, famous cheese made in France, so that's named after that. This is Penicillium candidum, which is a Camembert. And people splice these kind of cultures to create their own cheeses. You can cultivate some on your own farm, but it's kind of unknown of doing that now. You know, cheesemakers work together to find the right culture that fits their milk to make great cheeses. So that's what dictates making a blue Penicillium Roquefort, that culture. But as well, all the production methods and handhold, but that's kind of where you start. So yeah, really kind of fresh flavour. There's you can smell it's a little bit stronger, like it's gonna have a little bit of spiciness in there, which is great because that is what I love from a blue. I like it to be impactful. Yeah, beautifully salty. Getting that up front, it's like really beefy. It's kind of like those, I don't know about you, but if I kind of put a stock cube into some, you know, a sauce or something like that, I kind of like go in and then I afterwards I kind of lick my fingers, and if it's a beef, it's kind of like that beef dripping, real saltiness and savouriness. I mean, that is a beautiful cheese. That's everything that I expect from a blue cheese. You know, texture is smooth, yet a little bit crumbly, which is great. And yeah, undles of savouriness, which is just beautiful. Then we got our last cheese, which is from Alsop Walker. So we've had Sparkenhoe Red Leicester, Sparkenhoe Blue. We've had the Camembert, and we're about to have the Mayfield. Now, we was missing, out of all these cheeses, the most sweetest one that we've had so far is the Camembert. It's a dairy kind of sweetness. This has a bit of hazelnut, but I think it's more about the freshness that's in there. So when I look at a cheese board, I look at sweet, salty, savoury, bitter, acidity, and I look at those levels and I try and balance them all out so they play to kind of everyone. And I got this and I was really stuck at the last one on what we can do. One that would have been perfect was the cheese that we used last week, which was called Kern, but you've had that last week. So but Alsop and Walker do this amazing mountain style cheese, and what you can see is these little islets that are in there. Now, a lot of people say they're the mice that eat that out. Could be true, but not true. What it is these small little bacteria that live, good bacteria that lives in the cheese. And essentially, if you imagine that bacteria breathing out, they create these holes. So you can have occasions where the bacteria is a little bit too crazy and the cheese actually bursts, and you use certain things in feed and things like that to push that down, and in the milk that you can push down. So these little islets, I'm sorry to say, they're not made by little mices. They're made by cultures that are in the milk, in case you wanted to know that. Really sweet, nutty. That's kind of what I was expecting. This is Gouda, Gruyere, Alpine style cheese. That's the starter culture that Arthur places in his milk to make sure that it's going to be that cheese. Texture, rubbery, which you would expect from an Alpine style cheese. But as soon as it touches, a little bit of warmth and liquid on your tongue dissipates, which is great, but it kind of acts like a film, so it coats the mouth really well. The mouthfeel is really nice. A little bit of grassy freshness that's in there. and then unders of kind of sweetness. Delicious. I really like this ball, the way it all comes together. And it balances and plays off each other really well. And lastly, you know, thank you. This is all British cheese. You are eating more British cheese, and it's amazing because, as I keep on saying every week, we've built up a huge heritage of amazing cheesemakers, and they're not supplying the restaurants. And every week that you buy these boards means that, you know, they survive a bit longer. And hopefully, when this is all over and the restaurants are open and we're eating cheese, drinking wine, it'll be okay for a very long time. But you've done something really important this week and the previous weeks, because these are getting so popular. You've done something amazing, which is support the British cheese industry and your cheese heritage. So keep on eating more British cheese. I hope you enjoy these. Check us out, rennetandrind.co.uk. Everything will be linked in. If you've got any questions, drop me an email. You know, go visit our social media platforms, wherever. Just get in touch, and I'll help you out as much as possible, because I love cheese and I love talking to people about cheese. So thank you, and have a lovely weekend. It looks like it's going to be a scorcher. Thanks a lot.